you.
We're live now, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Corporate Parenting Board. For those of you who don't know me, I am Councillor Chris Hobson and I am Chair of this board. And I remind all participants that we are meeting virtually, therefore proceedings may take slightly longer than normal, so your patience is appreciated. We are live on YouTube, so please ensure you are mindful of this in your questions and comments. Normal rules of procedure apply and all questions to be directed through the chair, please. Thank you. I'd like to start off by welcoming Carolyn Dodds to our meeting, who has just joined our board, and I'm pleased to see that she's here this afternoon. Right, apologies for absence, Susie, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have no councillor apologies, but we do have a few officer apologies from Rachel Farnham, Rob Brown, and Tony Parkinson. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got any declarations of interest, please? I can't see everybody's hands, so.
No, Chair.
No, thank you. Minutes of the Corporate Parenting Board for the 30th of March. Can we accept these as a true record? Thank you, Councillor Davidson. We've got a seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Uddin. We now move on to the COVID-19 update, which will be done by Sue Butcher, Executive Director of Children's Services. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Chair. Just to say there's a little bit to report this time. We have had an outbreak, as it were, of COVID in one of our children's homes. That is now coming to an end, but has had some effect, not on the running of the home as such, but on staffing issues. But as far as I'm aware, and Paula might be able to put me right, those issues are now resolved in terms of the stresses caused by COVID. In terms of our own staffing levels for staff, our children's social workers and residential workers, we send a return to the Department of Education now on a monthly basis, and we have to respond in a sort of 0 to 10 and then 10 to 20% absences. We are very definitely in the 0 to 10% absence rate. In fact, it is actually much lower than that, but that's the box that we put it in. In terms of residential staff absences because of COVID, that is slightly higher, i.e. from in the next box, 11 to 20% because of the reasons that I've just quoted. In terms of further information, the children's education scrutiny earlier on this week asked for information about vaccinations of children 12 plus and 5 plus. And I don't yet have that information, but if this Corporate Parenting Board would like that as well, I can report it back.
Yes, I think so. We would like that. I think any information that we can gather is good for us. So yes, please.
Thank you. And going forward, Chair, we discussed, I think, one of our sort of agenda setting meetings, whether you would want this update to continue on a monthly basis. Again, scrutiny has asked that it continues on a monthly basis until July, because they feel that updates are still needed, but I'm happy to take your direction.
Yeah, I think we will just keep it on a monthly basis just for a little while longer, Sue. Thank you.
That's no problem. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is participation of children and young people, and this is going to be presented to us by Kathy and Xavier.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kathy Peacock and I work for Participation People, and I've been supporting creating groups of care experienced young people, and we have 2 groups that we currently support. One is for young people aged between the ages of 10 and 17, and that's called a Children in Care Council. And they've been meeting on a weekly basis at Easterside Hub. We have decided that this meeting is going to go on and meet on a fortnightly basis, but just for a little bit longer. So, and we also run a Care Leavers Forum on a Thursday at the Pathways office. Again, that's going to move to a fortnightly basis, a little bit longer, and that's for care leavers aged between 18 and 25 years. So what we've been doing in the group so far, I think Xavier is here, so I think he's going to update you regarding the Children in Care Council. All right, well, I don't know where he is. He's on my screen, but so I'll update everybody. We had a very exciting meeting on the 29th of March, and we had both of the Ofsted inspectors come along and joined them in their session. They had an opportunity to talk to the young people about the work that they were doing in the Children in Care Council, and the young people were able to show them their portfolio of all the things that they've been doing since January when we set up the group this year. The inspectors asked them a number of questions around their experiences of their support, and they were able to give really good examples of the support that they were getting from the schools, from their social worker, and knowing what is in their plan, and that they were going along to these their meetings as well. They did raise the issue that they have had quite a few social workers over their time of being looked after. And the inspectors said that they were going to raise this issue with Sue the following morning, which I believe, Sue, that they did have a chat with you about. And you were able to talk to them about all the work that the council is doing to encourage experienced people to come and join the council as social workers, all the support that they would get as social workers. And I think that they got a very positive response about how the council is going to respond. And you also fed back to the Children in Care Council on the 5th of April that you'd had that chat with the inspectors and explained to the young people all the things that you are planning to do. And I think that the young people really welcome that, because ultimately they don't know what happens behind, you know, not closed doors as such, but what happens in the council. They tell us about their experiences, but it's good to hear from their point of view all the things that are taking place and what's happening. And I think we want to continue those discussions. I know, Sue, you have offered to come back, and the door is open for anybody else that would be interested in coming along to the Children in Care Council. If you've got anything in particular that you'd like to ask the young people, just drop me an email so I can meet with the young people, have a chat with them, and we can have you coming along and you can have a chat with them yourselves. So we very much welcome that. We like to plan activities for them, because it's good, because they are giving up their time because they volunteered to come to this group. We have fun with the people, with the young people, but we're also asking them questions about their experiences and things that they'd want to change. So they do quite a lot of work in this group. So we did have a fun activity with them. We took them bowling, which they really enjoyed. I managed to win one game, which was good. What we're hoping to do, well, what we will be doing, and we're working with the Middlesbrough Football Foundation, is that we're going to hold a football event. This is something that the Pathways team have done previously, and it's been really, really successful. So we're doing a bit of a collaboration with them. What we're hoping to do is we want to invite lots of care leavers, lots of looked after children to come along to that event. Have a fun day, give them some lunch, and everybody else who is interested in playing football or standing on the sidelines cheering people on. I have put in the report it was going to be on the 28th of July, but that date has now changed. It's going to be in the first week of August. So when that date has been confirmed, which it will be on Friday, I'll send, the young people have designed an invitation to all the looked after young people and care leavers. I will certainly forward that on to corporate parents, so you can put that into your calendar. Just let me know if you're able to make it. That would be really good. And I think the young people do enjoy seeing people. They have various chats with people. Yeah, so that'd be really good. I'll let you know. So regarding the Care Leavers Forum, we've currently only got 2 members. We've had a decrease of members due to a number of situations that care leavers find themselves in. I did list a couple of those within the report. We're working with Pathways around increasing young people to come along to the Care Leavers Forum. We went to their Care Leavers social event that they run on a fortnightly basis at Pathways. And we met with 3 other care leavers as well. We talked to them about the Care Leavers Forum. We got them to complete a survey for us when we were there. So the plan is that every 6 weeks we're going to kind of take over the social event, have some nice food, get them to ask any questions. We're going to ask them some questions. They can ask us some questions. So they don't necessarily have to be part of the forum if they don't want. The key for us is around meeting as many looked after young people and care leavers as possible. They don't have to come to these groups. We're going to go out and meet and get to meet these young people. So the plan is that we're going to go into the residential homes. An email's just gone out recently asking for us to come in if they have any residents meetings, for us to do a little bit of a slot with them about how things are going from them, what's happening. We've got a care leavers forum, we've got a kit group. So they're fully aware of everything that we're doing, but also enabling them to have a voice as well. Recently, we had a care leavers brunch. This was a brand new thing that, in fact, Paul Rudd suggested that we look at setting up when he came to the care leavers Christmas event in January. So we created this. It was at Fork in the Road. It was a brunch, so invited care leavers to come along for free bacon, sausage, egg sandwiches. A bit of consultation with them while they were there. The numbers weren't great. We had 3 care leavers come along to that, but like with anything, it's the start of something. So we're going to run it again, see how it goes, and hey, if it's not for care leavers, we'll come up with something else. We'll just keep on generating these ideas, about things and creating new things as well. So yes, and just as part of the work that we did with the Children's Commissioner Office, we were very fortunate to be contacted to say that they had 200 membership of an app called Breathe, and they gave us the codes for this app. So that's gone out to care leavers. If you go on the app, it's all about kind of meditation, breathing exercises, things to do, go for walks, things to lower anxiety, anything that they're finding difficulty with, kind of methods of them being able to cope with the negative feelings that they've got. So I thought that was fantastic. And that came about because the young people helped the Children's Commissioner Office with a piece of work. So that was a really exciting thing that we got given to us. The roadmap gets updated every time I present this report. So we've still got lots more things that we're planning that takes us up to July, and the next roadmap will take us through to the autumn. So we've got some amazing things that are happening, lots more than I've put in the roadmap. But yeah, things are looking good, and we're getting really good responses back from young people who are involved. So we're really excited about that. Thank you. And I don't know if Xavier's here now. Sorry, Chair.
All right. Do you want to add anything, Xavier, before I go over to questions?
No, I don't, Chair.
Okay. I'll go over to Sue Butcher next, because I know, Sue, you've had your hand up for a while.
Thank you, Chair. I won't take more than a minute. I just wanted to say that the young people, when they met Ofsted, when Ofsted came to me, it wasn't just a, oh, and by the way, young people said, it was very much, and the young people, it was quite a formal, the young people have asked me to put to you, why have they experienced changes of social worker? And I responded to Ofsted, and then, as Kathy said, did go down and talk to the young people about it. So that felt like a good loop. I mean, I didn't have answers as such to give to the young people. I could say what we were doing about it. I think that they understood that. But I'm just, I think, making the point that it was a formal loop from Ofsted, and the young people, I hope, felt very much involved as part of the monitoring visit that was going on. They were sort of reverse monitoring us, as it were. And also, I was really very impressed with the way that Kathy handled the meeting, but also you did some consultation, Kathy, with them. In a way, it was actually a game, which was about young people staying in Middlesbrough. And I was just really impressed with the way that you got the results from the young people, but they didn't know that they completed a survey because they were just playing a game. And it was brilliant. So I just wanted to add that, Chair. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you. Councillor Walker?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, thanks very much for that, Kathy. I've really enjoyed listening to that, actually. There's so many different avenues that you're going down at the moment. And I think it's also about giving them the opportunity to join. I know you said you only had 3 people turn up, I think it was, to the lunch, was it, at the Fork in the Road? It's always a bit disappointing when you only get a very low number. And I know where you're coming from. That I've done things in the past, and you think, well, everybody wanted it, and now nobody's here. But I think it's giving them that information and that they can attend, and maybe the next time, maybe more will attend. And also, it gives them the opportunity to dip in and dip out when they feel like it or when they need support, and also to know that there's people there to listen to their concerns, etc., as they get older, obviously, and that we're not just leaving them out there to get on with things. So I'm really impressed with that, and I look forward to hearing again what happens next time. Hopefully a bit more successful, but obviously lots of the things that you're doing sound very, very impressive, actually, and I'm quite pleased to see all these things going on with pathways and the children and care councils, etc. So it's nice to know that these participation events are actually happening and might not be as successful as you want it to be, but I'm sure as time goes on it will be better. But thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Davison?
Yes, thank you, Kathy, for that update. I'm so pleased to hear that you're thinking about going to the young people, because I think sometimes young people would have a problem possibly getting to you. So I'm really pleased that you're thinking about going out to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dodds?
Yes, hello. Thanks, Chair. Kathy, it was lovely at the Fork in the Road, and although you say you were disappointed at the numbers, it showed that a couple of people were interested and came along, and it's showing them that we, as the adults, care. And that's the word children that are in care or leaving care need to know that we still care for them and that we're looking out for them. And that's the important part, I think. You know, like Jeanette Walker says, you know, we need to show them that we are thinking about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dodds. Tia, did you want to come in on that?
I just wanted to ask, are you definitely getting the information out to care leavers? Because I didn't get told about it to a few, I think it was an hour before the event was happening. So are we ensuring that the information is getting out to these care leavers? Because that might be the reason why some didn't turn up.
Thank you, Tia. I think, do you want to come in on that, Kathy? But I think we did get the information out. I think, Tia, the problem was it was an early morning start for quite a lot of them, and I think a few people had to be woken up to be brought to the Fork in the Road. But I'll let Kathy come in on that.
Thank you, Tia. It is always a really difficult one in being able to to make sure that everybody gets the information all the time. What we will be working with the Pathways team on, another piece of work that we're picking up, is around making contact directly with the young people. So when I started creating the Care Leavers Forum, I spent 2 days over the Christmas period sending text messages out to 200 care leavers, and I got 5 responses back from care leavers around being interested in being part of the Care Leavers Forum. But actually it was a really good exercise for me to do, and I think having that direct contact when the teams are, you know, they are really busy and they will do their absolute utmost to get things out, but sometimes things get delayed, or as you say, if you only got an hour's notice, you know, we want to prevent that from happening. So we want to make sure that people have enough notice. I'll text them to let them know the dates in advance. If workers and myself can text them in the morning to remind them, as I do with the Care Leavers Forum, we message people, you know, a couple of days before and on the morning to say, don't forget, it's a Care Leavers Forum, come along. So it's all working together to get the messages out there. I think it's really good. But thanks very much for that, Tia. And I'll make sure that you get, are you interested in the football event? Come along with your
Yeah, I'll be
shorts
happy
on.
to play football again.
Oh, fantastic. That would be really good. I'll be on the sideline. You won't want to see me in shorts.
Thank you, Kathy. I have a couple of points that I'd just like to raise. First of all, the Care Leavers Forum. I know that we only had a few people turned up, but I thoroughly enjoyed that morning. I thoroughly enjoyed talking to the young people. I got involved in a conversation about football, which was absolutely brilliant. And I just think that the leavers that turned up, you know, I did have a good conversation with them, and I thought it was really, really good for me, to be honest. So thank you for putting that on, and please keep going on that side of things. I'm delighted that you're actually now going to go into care homes. I think that is a really good, positive thing to do. I myself are visiting care homes as well, because I do feel that the young people need to know that we are interested in them, and they are interested in the way that they live and how they are. So yes, that's another good positive thing. Thank you. And my last one is just a shout out to everybody on this board, please. This football thing, I'm sure that if we don't play football, we can all go along and cheer them on. And I think that would be an absolutely brilliant thing to do. So yes, let us all get involved in that one. And even if you want to get out on the pitch, I think that would be really good. Good bit of exercise there, you know. Okay, so thank you very much, Kathy, for that. I really appreciate what you've said to us this morning. Very positive, really good news. We're certainly working in a few directions to try and get these people, these youngsters, along the right lines and keeping them involved in various things. So thanks again, Kathy.
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is...
Chair,
Yes?
sorry, it's just Susie here. Councillor Jeanette Walker would like to say something. Thank you.
Sorry, Jeanette. Councillor Walker,
Thank you very much, Chair. Sorry about that. Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate, yes, I'm glad that I'm really pleased, like you said, about people being invited to go and see the care homes now, the actual children's homes now. I think that's a very good idea. It was actually in practice a few years back. I trained to actually go to see Hollywood. Oh God, I can't even say it now. That we got Holly Lodge home, and I actually did all the training, and then the people in charge of the home decided they didn't want anybody interfering and coming to the home at all. And I felt that was a sadness, really, because we'd done all the training with the people involved to make sure that we were aware of how delicate the system is to go and see children in their actual living experiences. And I'm glad that it's coming back into practice, because I think it's very important that we're seen as not just corporate parents, but we're parents in a way of our children that are very important to us in this area. So I'm glad that that's come back in, and I agree with you, Chair. I think it's a very good practice to actually encourage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Right, we'll move on to the next item now, which is performance against corporate parenting board strategy. I know Rachel was going to present this, but I don't think she's with us at the moment. So
it's Paula Jemson. I'm going to be
Paula,
presenting
yes.
the scorecard today, if that's
Paula.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Susie, are you able to share? Brilliant, thank you. Board will see that the presentation, the report looks slightly different this month because our data team have kindly made sure that all areas of the scorecard, I think in the past we've selected certain areas for corporate parenting board. This slideshow goes through every performance indicator for corporate parenting board. What I'm proposed to do today, Chair, if you're happy with this, is I've selected ones that I think will be of specific interest, but if anybody has any questions at the end, then I'm happy to take any questions. I just think to go through every slide might be a bit onerous and time consuming for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Paula.
So the first slide, slide 1, Susie, I think we're on there, is around capacity. So you'll see the first graph talks about how many looked after children are open to the local authority. You'll see from the graph that we've continued over the course of the last 12 months to reduce the number of children that are looked after. We reached under 500 in January, but we've seen a recent increase over February and March. And you'll see the data there is that at the end of February, there was 503 looked after children. I can report that in March, we had a further 25 children that became looked after and 12 that ceased. So we have seen an increase in demand and a bit of a kind of a spike over the last kind of 6 weeks that hasn't been typical of that over the last 12 months, but we continue to support children to come through the looked after system in a swift way. You'll see the second graph here refers to the number of the rate of children per 10,000 of the Middlesbrough population that are looked after. And you'll see that at the end of February, it was 43.83 children looked after per 10,000 of the Middlesbrough children. That's again reduced significantly over the last 12 months. It was 65 children this time last year. And what you'll see is that we are closing the gap between ourselves and our statistical neighbours, which is our target. Susie, if you could move on to slide 2, please. So the first graph here looks at the ratio of the number of children who are becoming looked after compared to those that are exiting the looked after system. So for every one child that ceases to be looked after, 0.6 children start to become looked after. So as long as we stay on that ratio, we will continue to reduce the looked after numbers overall. What you will see next month is an increase in that because of the demand that I've spoken about. With regards to I'm going to move on to the third graph there, because I think board will be interested to know about social work caseloads. And you'll see here that caseloads have continued to decrease for social workers since August 2021 and are below target currently. If we can move on to slide 3, please. So the first graph here talks about the average time that children spend in care. We obviously want children to spend as little time in care as possible, as long as it's safe for them to cease to be looked after. In February, that reached a significantly low number, meaning children are reaching a plan of permanence in a timely way. So that was the average of 78 months. So of the children that ceased to be looked after at the end of February and throughout February, they had spent an average of 78 months in care. If we can move on to slide 4, please, Susie. So this first graph here talks about the number of children who are looked after with a parent. So they're subject to a full care order. They are looked after children. The local authorities share parental responsibility for them, but they are living at home and being cared for by a parent. And we will see the number of children that are in these arrangements has reduced month on month in the last 12 months. And that continues to decrease. I can let board know that we currently have 45 children in total that are looked after by a parent, and 33 of those are on a more permanent order, a full care order. This number has reduced by 41% in the last 12 months, which is significant improvements. If we can move on to slide 5, please. So you'll see in the second graph here, this indicates the number of children that are placed outside of a 20-mile radius of a Middlesbrough postcode and their hometown. Wherever possible, we want children to continue to reside in Middlesbrough to support their identity and their relationships with families and friends. So 20% of looked after children are placed more than 20 miles away from Middlesbrough. That has reduced since August 2021, but continues to be above target of 15%. When we're looking at this statistic, we do also need to think more deeply about the kind of placements that these children have. So, for example, some of the children that are placed outside of a 20-mile radius may be in an adoptive placement. So despite the fact that they've moved outside of the Middlesbrough area, they are en route to securing a plan of permanence. And in some cases, if they're with a family member, say, for example, actually, despite the fact that they're placed outside of a 20-mile radius, we may be achieving a good positive outcome for them as opposed to them being in foster care or residential care. So there are a number of other factors to consider when we're thinking about that. Can we move on to slide 6, please, Susie? So the first slide here looks at the number and the percentage of our children that are looked after by in-house foster carers. And you'll see that 22.2% of our looked after children are cared for by in-house foster carers. That's slightly above target of 21%. So we continue to work closely with our fostering team, and you'll hear from the service manager of the fostering team shortly around what we're doing to try and increase the number of in-house placements that are available for our looked after children. So it's always the first consideration when a child needs a foster home, whether or not we can support them within Middlesbrough and within our own resource. Could we move on to slide 9, please? So slide 1 here looks at the number of children experiencing a placement breakdown, and we'll see that there has been a reduction in the number of children experiencing a placement breakdown in the last 12 months. You'll see that 4% of the looked after population have experienced a placement breakdown, which is an improvement on the same period last year. We move on to slide 10, please, Susie. Sorry, Susie, have we moved on to slide 10?
I've moved on to the next slide. Sorry, Paula, I'm not sure whether which indicator number do you require, and I can see if I can find it.
I'm sorry, I haven't written a note. It's just slide 10.
Okie dokie.
Does your
Sorry, the last
it's around the education, employment, and training.
Okie dokie.
I was just going to say, Susie, the last one didn't actually match up with what was being said.
Oh, right. Okay. Apologies for
Let me
that.
go back. So it was the children experience and placement breakdown. That's that one.
Right. Okay. Sorry about that.
You'll see on slide 1 there.
Right.
So we talked about the fact that there's been a reduction in the number of children experiencing a placement breakdown in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
On the last one. Yeah.
Are we on the correct slide now, Paula?
We are, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry
no
if I've
problem.
confused
No,
things
it's
there.
fine. It's just I don't, obviously because I've gone to full screen, I don't have the slide numbers. So
The
I'm sorry
slide
about that.
numbers. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
sorry.
didn't
No,
realise.
it's fine. Don't worry, it's not your fault. I'm just pleased we're on the right slide. Thank you. Sorry about that, Chair.
Okay,
Thank you.
so the first graph here looks at the number of children who are over the age of 16 and whether or not they are in employment, education or training. And you'll see in February that we saw an increase in the number of looked after children that were 16 plus that are in an educational provision, with 70% of our children being engaged. That's a 5% increase compared to last month. Susie, if you could move on to, well, it's slide 11, but it's looking at strength and difficulties questionnaires. So if we can just move on slightly. Yeah, must be back one. Here we go. So the second slide here looks at the percentage of our looked after children who have a strengths and difficulties questionnaire. So this is a questionnaire that helps us to understand the emotional needs and mental health needs of our looked after children. We do them on a 12-monthly basis, and we do them for all children between the ages of 4 and 16. It helps us to understand if there are any emotional issues, and it helps us to consider what interventions might be needed to inform the care plan so that we can make sure that children maintain optimum kind of emotional and mental health. So you'll see that over the course of the last 12 months, we've been working hard to make sure that we are understanding our children's emotional needs, and the percentage of children who have an assessment has increased kind of quite frequently over the course of the 12 months. It's increased to 88% currently, and that's a 42% increase from the same time period last year. So they were the slides, Chair, that I had chosen and kind of made a judgment call about the things that I thought board would be most interested in hearing about. But if there is anything that anybody would like to ask about any of the other slides or the ones that I've talked about, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you, Paula. Sue, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add a little bit to Paula's presentation. The numbers of looked after children has risen recently. I think there are two specific reasons for that. One is that in the hub, the Futures for Families accommodation, the complexities of the cohort of young people living there at the moment means that some of our outreach work hasn't been able to take place. And as you know, our outreach work is one of the ways in which we, children on the edge of care, are, as it were, diverted from not coming into care. Although the number of children coming into care is not a figure that I'm in any way doubting, what has happened also is that some of you may be aware of what's been called the Somerset Judgment. Now, this is a legal issue that took place in Somerset and has halted adoptions across the country for quite a significant period of time, whilst we were waiting for the president of the family division to hand down a judgment. And I know I've discussed this in some depth with Councillor Smiles. So it does mean that we have a cohort of children who should have been adopted by now and therefore would no longer be looked after children, but are remaining looked after. I don't have the figure to hand as at the end of February, as Paula has been giving, but certainly my conversations around with adoption, some of my adoption colleagues yesterday, was at the current time we have about 15 to 20 looked after children who, if the Somerset Judgment hadn't happened, would be adopted. So you can see that our trend would be reinforced if we hadn't had those two issues arise for us. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, that's very helpful, Sue. Thank you. Councillor Walker?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to say that before this meeting today, I was there seems to be again the media, the news media is splashing things again. They all like their doom and gloom, don't they? And it says that 14% of northeast there was an increase of 14% in the northeast of children looked after, and that's the news today. And the children's minister, when asked, or former children's minister, I couldn't quite grasp that, says more investment has to be done into early help, and I think that's always been the premise of this of our remit anyway, right across children's services. The early help actually helps towards getting those figures down as they get older. So I'm just wondering, with the information that we've been given today, it doesn't seem to reflect that in this particular area. So you say that it's gone up, Sue, but has it gone up by 14%? I don't know. I mean, we get all this news on the television, and that's not just us. Obviously, we come to these meetings so we can find out exactly the figures and exactly what's happening, and we do. But obviously, it's very worrying when you see that splashed across the northeast. The figure's gone up by 14%, which is quite an increase. And I'm just wondering if you can clarify that in any way. Thank you.
Chair, is it okay if I respond?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. You are absolutely, it's a really good question to ask. In fact, Middlesbrough has been doing, in terms of the trend of looked after children, Middlesbrough has been doing very well compared with our northeast colleagues. So I can't confirm that it's 14% because I don't have that figure in my mind, but I do know that most of our northeast comparators, their numbers of looked after children have gone up, and in some authorities they've gone up quite significantly. But for us, the trend has been coming down. We have significantly narrowed the gap, as it were, between some of the northeast authorities and ourselves. That's not to say, of course, that we're complacent, and we still are looking for our numbers to come down. But that's my understanding. We can bring northeast figures, although they won't be as up to date as we have brought here today. But I think that the hard work that Middlesbrough has been doing in terms of our improvement journey has paid off in that regard.
Thank you for that, Sue. Chair, can I just maybe add on to that, if possible?
I'll just bring Paula in before I come back to you, Jeanette.
All right, I just wanted to add on to what Sue had said, but
all right, okay, go ahead.
I just want to say, I think this poses the question yet again about how we deliver the information to the masses, basically. And I think it's important that we devise a way of getting our news releases and press releases out there and to maybe counteract what's being said on general social media and news media, to tell people of Middlesbrough that these things are, very important to us as a council, and that we are addressing these concerns, and that we are not as bad maybe as our contemporaries on the other side of parts of North East. So that's another way that we've got to try and get a handle on the way that we're perceived by the general public in Middlesbrough. Thank you.
Can I respond, Chair? Is that okay? Yeah, certainly we've had a recent monitoring visit, Councillor Walker, and I have the pre-publication version, and that will be published next week. And I am confident that that will be a good news story for Middlesbrough. As you know, the press can often slant things, can often pick out the fact that we are still an inadequate authority, which I don't, I would, is still our Ofsted rating, as it were. But I think that the monitoring visit will show improvement has been made. I also am very aware of the comments that you're talking about, and would wish for Middlesbrough to be portrayed in terms of the improvement we are making more strongly. And I am with Andrew Glover, our comms head of service, setting up or working to set up a meeting with the Gazette so I can talk to them about some of these issues, and also look at whether we can do some features in terms of, I know, for example, that they would like to interview a social worker. So after that meeting, and I think that we need to be more proactive, of course, completely confidential about the young people that we are talking about, but we need to be, and I would very much like us to be, more proactive. One of my main things since I've been in this post is putting Middlesbrough on the map. Yeah, and that's really what I want to do, and I want Middlesbrough to be on the map for the most positive of reasons.
Thank you very much for those assurances, Sue. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sue. Paula, did you want to respond to Councillor Walker?
I did, thank you, Chair. It was just to add to what Sue has said, really, when we're looking at percentages and overall numbers. I think Sue's kind of given an explanation as to some of the recent issues that have led to the increase. Overall, when we look at our improvement journey, at our height, I think I have kind of discussed this in previous boards, but in September 2020, we had 702 looked after children. At the end of February, we had 503. Despite kind of ongoing demand in Middlesbrough and the complexities of the problems that the Middlesbrough face, we've continued to reduce the numbers, which is against the national trend, which really highlights the progress that we've made in terms of our quality of practice. Overall, it's a 28.3% reduction. If we're looking at percentages from the end of February till at the height in September 2020. So I just thought it was an important point to make, Chair.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Paula. I agree that, you know, the Gazette do go out and they actually do give us some very bad publicity at times when in actual fact we don't deserve it. And we do know that we've brought them down, the numbers down from the 700s and actually went to the 400s. And I do believe one time the chief executive said he was pint when we got to the 400s. I haven't heard anything from him since then. I think he was going to include us all in that, of course. Anyway, I think we have a very good news story there. I don't think we've got a bad news story. I think it is all very, very positive, a very, very good news story. So thank you. Councillor Udin, I know you've been sitting for a while. I'll bring you in now.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, that's brilliant, Paula. That was a very good presentation, actually. I really enjoyed listening to you. Only query I had, you know, the caseload you mentioned, the reduction in caseload. Is it because of we are successfully recruiting social workers now? Because we did have some issues in the past, you know, in terms of recruitment as well. So
yeah, I think that there are a number of factors, Councillor Udin, that are impacting on the reduction in the caseloads. I think our throughput is much stronger because our practice is stronger. So children are moving through the system much more swiftly. So that's allowing us to kind of work more intensely with the children that meet the threshold and require the support. The recruitment campaign continues, and we have a number of different ways that we are encouraging social workers into the area. We've got a new workforce offer encouraging new staff to come into the Middlesbrough area, and we have a social work academy that is recruiting newly qualified social workers. So they come through Teesside University as students and other universities. They're supported into our social work academy where they're given intense support before they're kind of supported to move into a host team. So we've got a really good offer for social workers to come into the area. Saying that, nationally, there is a national picture where recruitment of social workers is difficult. So we continue to battle that, but we're supported by a stable agency cohort of staff. So I hope that answers that question.
yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. Before I actually go over to Councillor Halawi, who I know has been waiting for a little while, I just wanted to say on the caseloads, you did say that the caseloads are now below target. And I think this is the time that we need to get an advert out of you, if you can. You know, we're below target. Please come and join us.
Absolutely, yes.
Right, Councillor Halawi.
Thank you, Chair. My question was around what you mentioned, Paula, in your presentation about children who still live with their families who are technically in the care of Middlesbrough Authority. So what parenting support do we offer to the parents who keep their children at home? Do we have regular parenting classes, training courses or discussions? It's the support mechanisms for parents to help them through this. That's what I was asking, please.
Yeah, so we have children who are cared for by parents and by family members. So when they're cared for by extended family members, they become a regulated foster carer, and in those circumstances, they are supported by our fostering team. They will receive supervision, training as in line and financial support in line with other foster carers. When children are placed with parents, they receive the support of the social worker. We have an interventions resource work team who will provide parenting support, and we go out to the community to look at any additional support within the local community to integrate them and support them within local resources.
Could you just explain a bit more about what you mean by that, please, Paul, about the local community involvement?
Yes, so our resource team has a group of resource workers that will go out and do individual parenting work. So we have a number of different staff who will go out and do specialised training. That includes specific training for children who parents who may have some learning needs. Other than that, we will go out and look at early help, the family centres, etc., to look at what additional support they could receive in the community in group settings.
Okay, thanks.
Question, Councillor Halawi.
Yes. I just wondered, I suppose my question was a bit more in depth as well, wondering about, how exactly, maybe it's not the answer for this meeting today, but I was sort of questioning, I wonder what these parenting classes look like. How are parents helped exactly? What exactly takes them from a position where they are to a better position as being an effective parent? It was, are they joint? How does it operate? I mean, could you send us, for example, by an email, a training program for a parenting training class or classes, if that's what exists? Or it's just trying to see exactly how we manage to improve people's skills. And I don't think I understand that exactly, but maybe it's outside of the remit of this meeting now, but maybe we could have some information about that, please. Thank you. Well, I'm interested. I don't know if other people are.
I think there are a number of other factors that impact on parenting as well. That when a child becomes looked after, they have a care team around them. So that will include other resources within the community, such as mental health resources, drug and alcohol services. So we have a whole host of services that wrap around a child who becomes looked after to support parents to make changes in their life that impact on the parenting as well as developing the parenting skills. So the care team would meet on a monthly basis. They'd review the care plan. The child's assessment will identify what needs the child have and what gaps there are in parenting ability to be able to help the family to make changes. That translates into the child's care plan, and the care team, including all of the resources, wrap around the child to develop that care plan to support parents to make changes in all areas of the life. So I understand what you're asking around the parenting work, and I can ask the manager of our resource team to provide corporate parenting board with an outline of what a parenting program would look like, and I can certainly bring that to corporate parenting board. I guess there's a lot of other community resources that would wrap around the child to support parents to make changes and for the child to live safely at home.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Paula.
Thanks, Paula. I think that does explain quite a bit of what you do. I can't see anybody else's hand up now, so I'd just like to thank Paula for that presentation. That was very informative. We will move on now to the next item, item 7, which is fostering for Q4, and Jennifer Rowan is going to present this. Jennifer is acting service manager. And so over to you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much. Susie, please could you bring up the presentation?
If you just give me one moment, I'm just going to put it on the screen. Thank you.
Thanks. I think just while the presentation is, oh, here we go. Oh, that's Victoria's.
Yeah. Caroline, sorry, if I send Jenny's presentation, could you pop it on the screen for me, please? I'm having a bit of difficulty. I'll just forward it to you. It won't be a minute.
No worries. Thanks, Susie.
Okay. Just while the presentation is being brought up, what you will see is there's been significant progress achieved within the fostering service, in particular in regards to the recruitment of mainstream foster carers. We've been undertaking a marketing campaign for some time now, and within that there's been a number of surges in push around that. So it's steady marketing campaign throughout, but then we have periodic pushes with that. And from January through to the current time, there's been over 100% increase in the number of inquiries that have been received by the service, which is great news. And comparative to Q3, where there was just one initial visit undertaken, we've undertaken 14. There we go. Thank you. If we could just go straight to the third slide, that would be fab, please. That's brilliant. Thank you. So as you'll see, just what I was referring to before in terms of the number of inquiries, has been a significant increase, and where we have regular meetings with our marketing colleagues in terms of where we target our marketing at any given point, and we're responsive to changes in the market and how people are responding to. Oh, there we go. Thank you. How people are responding to different marketing methods, i.e. Google Ads, information being shared in public spaces such as local marketplaces, etc. And so where we are finding that we're having a bigger impact, we're pushing that even further as well. So there's a significant increase in the number of initial visits. The positive, a particular positive in regard to that is from the point of inquiry through to initial visit. By the time we get through to an initial visit, we're as confident as we possibly can be that actually this is going to be a potential viable and potentially positive prospect of a fostering family, notwithstanding the need for assessment. So we've made sure that there is availability, we've made sure that there is room space, we've made sure that there is a level of understanding of the commitment that our foster carers would be required to have, but also in terms of the support that us as a service are able to offer to our foster carers, both prospective and approved. The number of fostering families, there has been an overall decrease, and there's a number of contributory factors in regard to that. So there have been some people deregistered from our mainstream cohort, with the exception of one of those families, which is referred to in the deregistrations there. There's 5 fostering families. One of those has been as a result of the service deregistering that fostering family, and a number of the remaining ones have been where the family hasn't been able to provide a service for generally approximately 2 years, because of their own personal commitments, circumstances, deterioration in health, change in work. So whilst it has been a reduction in the number of approved families, actually in real terms there haven't been any placements for our children lost, because there was nothing being provided for approximately 2 years with the vast majority of those families. Just coming back up to the information around the foster placements available for children that aren't occupied. Again, you'll see that there's been a reduction in that. That's the 7 placements identified as available on the time of pulling the data together. Those were for babies, so our 0 to 2. And with that, there isn't scope to increase age range, because typically that is due to the child, the baby, being able to share a bedroom with the carers. And the other reason for it is in respect to respite. So we have a number of fostering families that are approved solely for the purpose of provision of respite for our children and young people, and also to support placement stability for our children, young people, and foster carers as well. So that's the explanation in regard to why those placements for our children have been unoccupied. But as you'll appreciate, that isn't a static figure and can change throughout the day, never mind day to day. So as I've just referred to in terms of deregistrations, there has been a number of deregistrations for mainstream carers for the reasons I've already outlined. In regards to connected carers, there hasn't been any deregistrations, and foster to adopt, there's been no deregistrations. Panel activity, as you'll see, there's been quite a significant, well, a very significant increase with that, and the real success in regard to that is 8 connected carers were presented to family placement panel and were approved as fully approved connected carers, which was for 12 of our looked after children. The relevance and importance of that is that those assessments for connected carers, the fostering assessments, serve to support our colleagues in the children's social work teams to achieve permanence via special guardianship orders. So we work collaboratively with our colleagues to try and achieve permanence in a really timely manner for children. The other significant success story is for the number of children that have been matched with their fostering families as long term. So this is their forever home for the entirety of their childhood, and comparative for Q3, where one fostering family was matched. We have 10 fostering families, which equates to 20 of our looked after children that have secure permanence and security with their forever fostering family. Unfortunately, we've not had any supported lodgings providers approved over the last quarter. We could go on to the next page, please. So as you'll see, what's working well within the service, or our performance is improving, not solely on the purpose with reference to compliance, but also the quality of practice, and we know that because that's what our independent reviewing officer is sharing with us, that's what our family placement panel members are sharing with us, and that's what audit is sharing with us, in addition to the work that we've undertaken with North Yorkshire, our previous partners in practice. The foster care reviews are taking place in timescales with over 80% of our reviews are taking place within timescales. That's a significant improvement in the context of the history, whereby for a period of about a year and a half, nearly 2 years, prior to 2020, there was foster care reviews not actually taking place at all. So we've recalibrated as a service and got those back on track. The predominant reason for reviews not taking place in timescales is typically due to fostering families' personal emergencies. Something's happened and they're not able to be physically present for the review. So that's why the reviews aren't taking place. In terms of the reports and the social work end of the piece of work being undertaken in a timely manner, that is now a rarity in terms of the reason for those reviews not taking place. Foster carers are consistently now receiving monthly supervision, which supports the fostering families and the children in our care. Again, when comparing to 2020, when I started in post in March, the fostering families were the frequency of supervision that fostering families received was very variable. Some were receiving supervision support visits 4 times a year, and some less than that, and some more frequently than that. So that's a significant improvement. As already referred to, there's been an increase in the initial visits and inquiries, and the timeliness of connected carers assessments, which supports plans of permanence for our children and young people, has significantly improved again compared to March 2020. We had in excess of 100 fostering assessments for connected carers that were way outside of 24 weeks, which was the regulated time frame by which we have to complete them. We now have no fostering assessments at the time of writing that were out of those timescales, so that's a significant improvement. That's not to say that the work isn't still coming in, but in terms of the way we work, how we're practicing, the throughput without compromising quality, they've done a tremendous amount of work within the service. I've already made reference to the number of children matched with the foster carers for long-term fostering, and with reference to the Mockingbird, so the Mockingbird project, which I referred to in the previous meeting that I've attended, we're well underway with that now, and actually the update from completing this presentation is that we have now appointed a liaison worker and the hub family for the Mockingbird. So we are on target for implementation to go live in September of this year. Touching on what Paul has referred to before, I think within the fostering service, certainly over the last 3 to 4 years, it was quite rare that we would have social work students within the service. We've now got 3 social work students within our service, which is supporting development for both our service, but also social workers of the future in terms of understanding the entire journey of our children through children's services. Staff morale remains good and they work collectively to support the service, the fostering families and the children in our care. The team camaraderie within the service is exceptional, and it is actually something that's really quite inspirational when you see everyone pulling together for the greater good of supporting each other, but most importantly our children and young people. And we are utilising available foster placements more effectively, and have a better understanding of availability. So we're thinking outside the box. We're looking at where there is availability, and the foster family has the skills and ability, but there may be some vulnerabilities. What can we do to plug those gaps to support carers? And a lot of it has been around building confidence with carers around actually us being able to support them, but also in their own skills and abilities. What we're worried about is, whilst there has been an increase in the number of children placed internally with our foster carers, there still isn't enough Middlesbrough approved foster carers. Complicating factors is that whilst our data systems have improved, providing greater accuracy, there's still a lot of work to be undertaken with them. The number of deregistrations of mainstream foster carers, and that's a breakdown of what I've already referred to. In terms of what we're going to do about both what we're worried about and what the things that are making our work that bit more complicated, we plan to increase the number of foster inquiries, increase the number of newly approved carers. So our aim, and I'm hoping we exceed it, is to have 10 newly approved mainstream families in 22 and 20 newly approved mainstream fostering families in 2023. We are increasing our toolbox for collecting views of children that are both looked after children, but also the birth children of our fostering families, because all of our children, whether they are looked after children or children within our fostering families, their views, their voices need to be heard, and they need to assist us in informing our practice. We're already implementing a targeted and robust training programme for the staff, specifically around their role within a fostering context. And as I've already referred to, the recruitment drive is our next push is in May of this year. Has anybody got any questions?
Thank you, Jennifer. I can't see. Oh, Councillor Smiles, have you got a question?
Thank you, Chair. Jennifer, it would be good, sorry if I've missed this, but it would be good to get some context around those figures that you've presented us.
Okay.
Over the past year and the past 2 years, has the number of foster carers remained relatively static, or has it decreased slightly?
It's decreased. It has decreased. It's decreased quite, in terms of actual approved carers, it has reduced quite significantly. However, there's a number of reasons for that in terms of practice issues, where even with a support package, we wouldn't be able to keep our children safe. There has been issues around COVID, and that's really had a quite significant impact on people making different decisions about what they want to do within their own personal lives. We have had a reduction due to, we've had a number of fostering families that have been approved for a number of years, and have not provided any fostering for any of our children. So when I'm speaking of a number of years, I'm talking 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So again, it was about bringing those people back into the service in terms of provision of foster placements for our children and young people, or looking at actually, is this right for them at this current time?
Yeah, that was the impression I got. It seems to be that the amount of foster carers is just reducing quarter by quarter, and I think we really need to get in there and do something quite dramatic to try and turn that around. Thanks, Jennifer.
Councillor Halawi.
Thank you, Chair. It was something you said, Jenny, around the former, I've just made a note, you said former previous partners, which were North Yorkshire. Are we no longer working in partnership with North Yorkshire?
The targeted piece of work that we were undertaking with them, that has since completed.
And could I ask another question then, Chair, please, related to that? So how has that helped us? Has it made a significant impact, the fact of working in collaboration with North Yorkshire? How helpful has that been, in fact?
It's been really helpful insofar that we've learned a lot from each other. So there's things that North Yorkshire have taken away in terms of how we do things, particularly around connected carers and some of our support, how we undertake our assessments. And similarly, we've taken some learning in regard to some of the work that they undertake. What it has shown us is that we're on the right track in terms of where we're targeting in development and improvement within the service. And they've been very complimentary about the work that we've undertaken so far in terms of our decision making, in terms of our performance, and the progress we've made over the time that we've been working in conjunction with them. So the particular pieces of work that we've completed recently have been around the completion of our Regulation 24 assessment. So these are for temporary approval for connected carers, and we wanted to make sure, checks and balances, that we were getting our threshold right in terms of decision making. Are we approving the right people? Are we not approving people that we should be approving, etc.? And they've confirmed from the sampling that they've undertaken that we have got that decision making right. The other piece of work was around audit, so learning conversations, and they were extremely complimentary around the level of understanding, ownership, accountability of our supervising social workers, and their knowledge around the foster carers by which they're supporting and supervising.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just add a final question then linked to this? So if this has been such a successful collaboration, why are we not continuing with it? I mean, I would have thought ongoing shared experience and shared good practice would be helpful to any organisation, and whether it be with North Yorkshire or indeed some other local authority, I would have thought it would be great to work in collaboration and share good ideas.
Chair, may I come in at this point?
Certainly. So,
Councillor Halawi, you make a really good point. The partnership that Jenny's talking about is a formal partnership agreed with the Department of Education. So it's done and has been monitored by 2 officers in the department, one of which is our improvement advisor, Sam Morrison, who you may have come across. So it's formal in terms of aids and objectives, and we get specific amount of days to do it. So it's not something that particular partnership is not something we can continue. I think you're very right to talk about learning from other authorities, and I think there are a variety of ways that we already do that, but that can always be looked at and improved. But the formal partnership that Jenny's talked about is a government, as it were, government-run scheme.
Yes, that's what I thought, Chair. And I thought there might have been financial implications attached to it, although I'm not sure. But it was just the idea of continuing to work collaboratively, which I would think would be an excellent opportunity to share good practice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we get that chance again, Councillor Halawi, I'm sure we'll jump at the chance. But unfortunately, we only had so many months or days or whatever to do that. So that has now finished. But if we can find ways of continuing, I'm sure we will. Thank you.
Sorry, just to add another sentence, Chair. Our improvement advisor, Sam Morrison, does look for opportunities across other authorities and puts us in touch with. I'm not talking specifically fostering here, but she will say, for example, why don't you talk to St Helens about, because they're doing X really well. So there are more informal partnerships that take place.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks. That's really helpful to know that we are constantly looking for informal ways of working and improving. Thanks. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Sue. And thanks, Jenny.
Has anybody else got any questions?
So can I just add with respect to that, because I think this is really quite relevant in regards to the decrease in foster carers, because I appreciate that's a real concern for people. Of the people that have been, of the fostering families that have deregistered either through their own choice or by the decision making of the service and the subsequent ADM, only 3 of those fostering families in the last 24 months have actually continued to foster with an alternative agency, an alternative provider. So I just wanted to, whilst it's still not great, the number of people that have chosen not to foster anymore, in terms of that continuation of fostering elsewhere, I think that plays testament that actually people aren't leaving in droves to go elsewhere. It's actually because they've made the difficult decision that for whatever their own personal reason, that fostering isn't for them at this moment in time.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that clarification. Any further questions? Thank you. Well, we move on to the next item.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda has actually been pulled back, which was future families. So we're not doing that today now. We're now going on to number 9, which is virtual schools update, and that is Victoria.
Afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Susie, are you okay to put up the PowerPoint? Are you still having difficulties?
No, I'm good now. Thanks, Victoria. I'll pop it on for you.
Thank you. Thanks, Susie. Can we just skip straight to slide 2, please? That's just a couple of lovely. Thank you. So as board members will be aware, the virtual school do an annual conference every year. Due to COVID, the last 2 years it's been online, and it was absolutely fantastic that we were able to do an in-person conference at Middlesbrough Riverside Stadium on the 11th of February. It was not just around looked after children, it was around all children with a social worker, because as I'm sure board members will be aware, the virtual school now have responsibility for all children with a social worker. And one of the aims of that was to get delegates together to discuss how we can champion the education for children with a social worker. There was over 150 delegates, and it wasn't just for schools and school leaders. We had a mix of delegates. So we had, for example, in schools, we had head teachers, we had governors, designated teacher, mental health leads. We invited our foster carers, and we also invited delegates from across children's service, everywhere from education to social workers to team managers. Next slide, please, Susie. Thank you. So the conference was really well attended, and I have to say a particular thank you to our senior leadership team. So our directors were there for the whole day. It's a big ask to take a full day out for that, and it just shows the dedication that our directors have for education for our children, our vulnerable children. Rob Brown did a fantastic job of being compare and hosted the event. Next slide, please, Susie. Thank you. It was a joint event, so it was held in Middlesbrough, but alluding back to what Councillor Halawi just noted around that joint working and working with other local authorities, this was jointly ran with Redcar and Cleveland Virtual School, and there was a joint address from the DCSs. And Sue did an absolutely inspiring speech. I put a little snippet on the PowerPoint, but for anybody who's interested, it is on the Middlesbrough Children Matter website for the full speech. Please take the opportunity to read it because I think it is inspiring, and it was a fantastic speech and went down really well at the event. Next slide, please, Susie. And we did have some really great feedback. So the virtual school conference was really useful and really engaging and inspiring. We found that the Pupil Premium workshop was insightful. Some of the speakers that we had were, I was amazed at some of the speakers that we were able to have there at the conference. So we had Lem Sisse, we had Luke Rogers, and we had Lisa Cherry. We had Dr. Nikki Luke, who was talking about the statistics and really set the scene for why it's important with children with a social worker. Next slide, please, Susie. But what's really important is actually that we haven't just all come out and had a lovely day, and that there is an impact for our looked after children afterwards. And what I personally found fantastic was within some of the feedback, that first statement there, I found it really beneficial. And I'm meeting with someone this afternoon about trauma-informed practice, which is fantastic that from coming together, having those conversations, that we're actually going to see that change in practice from that conference. And that's why they're really, really important. Next slide, please, Susie. So as I said, our directors were there to champion that. The event was free, so there was no charge. However, there was a catch for all delegates. What we did ask is that all delegates who attended the virtual school conference is that they made a pledge to become educational champions for children with a social worker. So everybody who was there has some connection and a way to offer support to children with a social worker. Next slide, please, Susie. And this is the pledge that delegates took. And Rachel Farnham led that. And we did get over 150 signatures. Again, I am going to give a call to action to board members. Anybody who would like to take this pledge, please get in contact with myself. I will send you a copy over that you can sign. And I'd be absolutely delighted if you'd like to become education champions for our children with a social worker. So again, anybody who's interested, please give me an email and we'll look at sending you the pledge over. Next slide, please, Susie. What I've also circulated is the minutes from the virtual school governing body. So I am going to go over the data from that, but I'm just going to touch lightly on it and pick out some of the trends. If there is any questions, I'll be happy to take those as well. So when Paula was talking recently about the decline in numbers of looked after children, we can also see that within the virtual school, and that's been a month-on-month decline. There are currently 339 school-aged children. When we look at that through phase around primary or secondary, we've got a continuation of that trend of where within 10% there is a 50-50 split between the two, and again, that trend is also relevant with males versus females. There's no significant difference. When we look at children who are educated in Middlesbrough schools versus non-Middlesbrough schools, I think Councillor Halawi's point here is this is where it comes to light in practice. So for those 61% of children who are educated within Middlesbrough schools, we have good relationships with our designated teachers. We have those conferences and we have regular designated teacher forums where we can support to make sure that our children get the best possible access to education. As a virtual school, a lot of the role that we do is to influence and to advise and give advice, guidance and information. The further afield that our children are educated, the more difficult that becomes. So you'll see here that there are 39% of our children who are educated and out of borough. That doesn't necessarily mean they live out of borough. So for example, they could live in Middlesbrough but attend a Redcar school, which again, that's why it's really important we can do joint training like we did with Redcar in Cleveland, and that we have a Northeast Virtual School Head group to extend that influence to the Northeast. But we would always encourage and support and try to keep our young people within Middlesbrough schools, or at least within the Northeast area where possible and where it meets the needs of the young person. One of the key things to ensuring that our children get the access to the best possible education is around education stability, because we know the more school moves that a young person has, that's going to have an effect on their educational outcomes. We know that if a child experiences exclusions and they're not in school, then they're not there to learn. So we very closely monitor the educational stability of all looked after children. It is reviewed within the virtual school governing body, and Sue is the chair of that, so has really good oversight. And what we'll see is we are actually seeing a reduction in school moves. And I think on the back of we're just now coming out of the pandemic and the strain that's being put on placements, actually we're in a really good position. I think a lot of that is down to the joint work, as Jennifer was talking about foster carers and the training with foster carers, and Paula was talking around stability in care planning, the reduction in case numbers. We can see that impact actually within school moves and that stability. So that joint effort actually has that impact. Permanent exclusions for looked after children. I am a little bit disappointed in the figures. So for the last 5 years, we've had 0 looked after children who've been permanently excluded. In the week of the end of the last term, there were 8 children at risk of permanent exclusion, and 1 has got through. It is a young person, without going into too much detail to keep anonymity, it's a young person who became looked after 3 days before the governing body meeting, and that decision was upheld at the governing body, but we are going to independent review panel with that to challenge it. If the trend continues, then by the end of this year, we're looking at 2, but in practice, we hope that actually we get that overturned and it is 0. So we are working very, very hard to keep that at 0. If we look at fixed term exclusions, I think you'll all be aware of the article in the Gazette around fixed terms exclusions and the increase of that. You'll actually see for looked after children year on year, we've got a decrease, and we have been working very closely with schools. That's not to say we're going to rest on our laurels, and that we think that our projection of 465 sessions of fixed term exclusion is something that would be a target. It's absolutely not, and there is more work to do, and there is extended work with partners that we're also doing to reduce those figures. And when we look at attendance, we would looking to aim for 95% attendance. That's the target. If we continue on the current projection, we'll have 86% attendance for looked after children at the end of the academic year. That is an increase on previous years, and we have strengthened our practice within that. And you'll see within the virtual school governing body papers the process that sits behind that. Next slide, please, Susie. So how are we going to sustain those improvements that we're making? Because we are on an improvement journey, and we recognise that. So there is the DFE attendance improvement plan that Trevor Dunn is working with the DFE with, that a virtual school are involved with, Lynn Mitchell and several different councils, other officers within the council are involved with. We also have the inclusion policy launch and the school inclusion pledge, and that's been led by Caroline Cannon's team. And we have the rollout of the Proclaim project, which I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about at the end of this presentation. We also, based on the data, we have pulled out the virtual school key priorities. And for this academic year, they are making sure that PEP meetings happen within timeframes and PEPs are of good quality, and that they drive progress, so that they are a living live document that actually support progress and attainment for our young people. That children are supported to achieve excellent educational outcomes, and that key stakeholders have the right support and challenge to drive good outcomes. Next slide, please, Susie. So each looked after child should have a personal education plan every term. And one of the things that we, as a virtual school, are responsible for is making sure that the right people are around the table. And that involves the social worker, the school, the foster carer, and the young people. And what you can actually see in this table is where all of those stakeholders come together and there is good attendance of all of those stakeholders, we get good outcomes. We get those good quality, those rich, in-depth, holistic, full view personal education plans that support the young people. You'll also see where there's lower attendance, that will have an impact on the quality. One of the things that we have been struggling with recently is the attendance of young people at personal education plans at their actual meetings. So their voices are captured and it is delivered at the meeting and someone speaks to them afterwards. But young people aren't wanting to attend their meetings. So Tia James, who is the virtual school education champion apprentice, has a list of all of the young people who have not attended their personal education plans, and we'll be contacting them to see if there's anything that we can do to change that to support them to attend their personal education plans. It could be that maybe their favourite lesson is drama and we're pulling them out of drama so they don't want to attend. It may be that they prefer it face to face and online. So we're going to do that exploratory work to understand from the young person's point of view what those barriers are and then work together to remove those. We have seen a fantastic upturn in seeing social workers attending PEPs, and you can see the value that they bring to those personal education plans, which is fantastic. And also our foster carers, 100% attendance in January, which is absolutely fantastic. Susie, next slide, please. So at the end of each term, using the personal education plans, we actually have a look at the data to see what impact it's made. And we can see, for example, over 100% of all of our Year 6 children have some level of engagement and they're motivated within their education. By looking at this deep dive with progress and attainment of our young people, so there is over 300 sections of data within a personal education plan that we can look at and analyse at any one time. And this is done on a termly basis. That then drives where we can focus our targeted intervention. So as you know, we have an intervention centre and we have specialist English, Maths and Science tutors. We can identify those children who need that specialist support via that data on a termly basis, and that will also help drive that progression and attainment. We've also got questions around social, emotional and mental health, and we have access to fast-track clinical educational psychologists and play therapists, where if we believe that's the barrier to attainment and progress, we can put that support in as well. So just to give reassurance to counsellors that that's how we track and monitor the progress of our children. Next slide, please, Susie. Thank you. So the Proclaim project is a project that I'm really, really excited about. It stands for Providing Rich Opportunities for Children Who Are Looked After in Middlesbrough. And what we mean by looked after, we mean looked after by the community. So those children who are vulnerable, those children with a social worker, those children with special educational needs, those children who are carers that need looking after. So the Proclaim project, it's to ensure that all Middlesbrough settings are attachment aware and trauma informed, and we aim to ensure that we have all schools within the learning community attachment aware trauma informed by 2025. And the reason for this is to ensure that we have a joint language around attachment and trauma. What the research is telling us is that those schools who work in attachment aware trauma informed way serve the whole school. Attainment and progress is increased, attendance is increased, mental health and student happiness is increased, teacher happiness is increased. There are only benefits to being an attachment aware trauma informed school. And the young people that benefit the most are our looked after children and our children with a social worker. And if we look at the backdrop of the high exclusions, especially permanent exclusions within Middlesbrough, then the Proclaim project will support our schools with that. So on Friday, we're actually asking schools to put in an expression of interest to join us on a pilot with our Proclaim project to support them to become attachment aware trauma informed. I am absolutely privileged to work with some of the most esteemed leading people within this area. For example, Luke Rogers, who those of you who came to the virtual school conference will know how passionate he speaks and the work that he's done. So he's on our strategic lead team and he is helping schools to develop that. We have Tony Clifford, who is one of the founders of the Attachment Research Community, and they're a national charity who supports schools to become attachment-aware trauma informed. We are linking in with Teesside University and Newcastle University to do some academic papers and studies, and with the view to getting those published with the impact of the work that we're doing within Middlesbrough. So again, feeding into that, putting Middlesbrough on the map, as Sue so keen to push that agenda, the positive things for Middlesbrough. Another two things that we're doing that's really positive for Middlesbrough is we did partake in 2 research. So one was with Oxford Research Centre, and that was led by Judy Saber and Dr. Nikki Luke. And that was around paired reading. That the papers have been circulated for the outcomes of that. And if anybody want any further discussion around that, I'd be happy to have those conversations. And I was absolutely delighted that Middlesbrough was selected to be in the research for the Post 16 pilot, that we were successful in that bid, and we're also part of that research, and that we are also part of the research around good practice and what works for children with a social worker based on that bid for the Post 16. So people are interested in the work that we are doing outside of Middlesbrough, and I think that's fantastic. Susie, next slide, please. Thank you. We also ran an Easter holiday activity club where we offered tuition, enrichment opportunities, bespoke packages. I was disappointed in the uptake. So we had 3 children that we already had established links with. And I think if anybody has any suggestions how we can get young people involved in education on their school holidays, I know it's a big ask, that'd be fantastic. And Kathy, maybe if we could link in and we could come to the Children in Care Council, I would really welcome that opportunity to hear from our young people. And that's it from me. If there's any questions, thank you, Susie.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Has anybody got any questions for Victoria? It was quite informative and quite a lot of detail in there. So if anybody has any questions? Alma, did you want to say something? You're on mute.
Yes, please. Yes. I'd just like to congratulate Victoria and the team for the marvellous work that's going on. It's evident that there's so much research into how to improve practice and how to get the very best outcomes for children in our town. And yes, sign me up for that programme you mentioned, please, about being a champion. I'd be very happy to take the pledge. Is that
right? I think you've frozen now, Councillor Halawi.
Thank you. Thanks very much to everyone there. It's a marvellous report that you've just given, Victoria. Well done to everyone.
Thank you. Anyone else got any further questions? No? I would just like to say, Victoria, that I will sign up to the pledge. I don't think I signed up on the day. I'm not sure whether I did or not. But I must say that the conference was absolutely brilliant. Learned so much from it and very, very well presented, very well organised. It was a really, really good day. So thank you very much for that. If there's no other questions for Victoria, the next item is any other business. Any urgent business. I don't have any. And it just leaves me to say thank you very much to everyone who's attended for all the presentations that we've had today. Absolutely brilliant. I know I'm biased, but I do think we've got a really good board going here. I would like to say thank you because it's our end of year now. And we have our AGM next month. So things could change. We don't know. But I would just like to say thank you very much to our Democratic Services team, Susie and Caroline, who have supported us all the way through this and been really, really excellent. I know we've had a few hiccups occasionally with things going down and not things working out, but you've always put it right for us, so we appreciate that. I'd also like to thank Tia and Xavier, our apprentices, who put their input into this board. And I really do hope that I will be seeing you again in the next, I call it our academic year. So thank you to everybody. You've all been really good participants. And also, before I leave, I'd like to say, if there's anybody out there listening who would like to be a foster parent, please, please get in touch. We do need foster parents urgently. We know there's a process that you've got to go through, but we will set you off on it. So please get in touch. Other than that, I just say